Tässä Ellen Signaali Sydämiin -ohjelma. Tervetuloa seuraan. Tänään ohjelmaa on kanssani tekemässä Piispa Yassir Eric ja saamme kuulla tuoreita uutisia, mitä muslimimaailmassa tänään tapahtuu. Tervetuloa siis seuraan. Welcome to the program, Bishop Yassir Eric.
Yeah, thank you, Rhea, for inviting me again. It's always a joy to be with you.
We have learned to know you as a man who loves to be in contact to believers and to hear their stories, to encourage them. And you have been traveling around the countries that are mainly known as Muslim countries, but there are believers also in those countries. So where have you been lately?
Yeah, absolutely. I travel extensively in the Middle East, like the area where majority are Muslims. And there are two narratives you hear from the Middle East. The official narrative in the news, wars in Syria, in Iraq, in Lebanon, Gaza, terrible situation, and we need to pray for that. But the other narrative, which we don't hear often, that God is building his church in Saudi Arabia, in Syria, in Lebanon, in Yemen, in Iraq, even in Libya. And they have believers all over. So I just give you an example. I was in Saudi Arabia a couple of times, and Saudi Arabia used to be like a country that totally closed, veiled women, like it's not modern. Since a couple of years, Saudi Arabia took a total different direction. It's not there yet, like in Europe and all of the freedom, but every small change in Saudi Arabia or in our region, it is kind of a revolutionary. So women, they started to drive cars. When you go to Jeddah, you find like people walking on the street and you get a visa. And I really want to encourage people, to take this a chance. You can apply online for a tourist visa. And they even discover biblical places in the north. And the idea of going there just to pray for the country. Because what is happening in Saudi Arabia now, it is because of the prayer of the people. And from my perspective, I see that Islam is losing ground in Saudi Arabia, in the Islamic countries, but it is winning more ground here in Europe, and this is what makes me to be really, really concerned about that.
What do you see? What is causing that?
Well, it's causing that, like in the Middle East, many people got to know the real face of Islam. Like if you speak to Syrians about ISIS and what ISIS did, they know exactly what ISIS did is Islam. If you speak to the Egyptians, the Muslim Brotherhood, they came and they were in power for 1 year, and people discovered that Islam cannot be the solution. And here in Europe, it's the other way around. Those minorities are coming here, the Europeans becoming secular, religion does not play any role, and then they're winning ground demographically, they are winning ground also politically. And that's, for me personally, as an immigrant who live here in Europe, coming from a Muslim background, it is a big concern for me to see how Islam is developing in Germany, even in the Scandinavian countries.
So what do you see that the role of a church is in the middle of that?
Well, here in Europe, the role of the church, it should go back to its root. So actually the church and the society. So this society in Europe, it is peaceful, it is democratic, it is tolerant, because they have this Judeo-Christian heritage. And the church needs to go to the very basic teaching of the Bible, of Jesus Christ, all of it. But the problem is the church in the West started also to apply democracy to the church. This means when we have the majority in the Senate, then we change, we say, well, the Bible is no longer for us like the thing that we believe in. Family is being redefined. There are some Christian principles. We cannot apply democracy to it. So either Jesus Christ is the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, or no. And that's why we need to go back to this root and to follow Christ wholeheartedly. And this is actually what we can learn from the persecuted church. Like our people in the Middle East, when I travel into the Middle East, I also visit believers who are enduring suffering, not because they're criminals, but because they are standing their ground and they say, well, we stand here and we cannot do it differently.
As you mentioned, you have been traveling in those countries and meeting a lot of new believers.
Yes.
What is the encouragement that you can give to them, and actually what kind of encouragement they give to you?
Yeah, actually, I get more encouraged. Like,
Yes.
when I go to Saudi Arabia or I was in Chad recently too, I get encouraged because you see, when people lose everything, Jesus becomes everything for them. So when I come back to Europe, I orient myself intentionally not to be distracted with the materialism and with all of this. And that's why I encourage everybody to make such a trip like that, because when we meet those brothers and sisters, we come back blessed. The little that I can give to them, and I say, you are not alone. There are some people are praying. And actually this interview, I do it because I would like to be a voice for those people. Maybe you will not meet them, but in this interview, we can talk about them. And I hope that the viewers that are seeing us, they can pray for those believers. This is what I can give back to them. And even though it is little, but prayer could move so many things. Yeah.
Yes, we have seen so many prayer answers as we have been praying for the Muslim world. Yeah. And now we see these happy news.
Yeah, actually what is happening in the Muslim world for me personally, it is just a reaction of prayer answers. Not because we are doing now a better method than for 20, 30, 40 years, but because people before 30, 40 years, they prayed. And actually there are some missionaries, even Finnish missionaries, they came to our countries. And when they left, they did not see anything. But now, people are coming to know the Lord because people prayed.
Yeah. As has happened to your home country in Sudan.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And that's why we should continue to pray, but also to be open that the Lord will send us. Will send us into these countries. And especially Finland, as Finnish, you have a positive attitude towards people. Like Americans for us, they are with George Bush and wars and all of that. But you Finnish, you did not colonize anybody there in that region. And that's why I wish that, this old way of the Finnish missionaries who went all over, that young people will also catch that fire and come and proclaim the gospel of Christ. Yeah.
So basically, if I try to squeeze it in a nutshell, we have to go back to basics, follow Jesus with all of our heart, then we will see what he's doing.
Amen. And then he will send us and we will see miracles in our lives. Yeah.
Amen. Let's keep on praying for that.
Amen.
Yes.
Amen.
Thank you, Bishop Yassir Eric.
Thank you for having me.
Jos haluat tietää enemmän Avainmedian tekemästä maailmanlaajuisesta lähetystyöstä, voit tehdä sen helposti tilaamalla itsellesi ilmaisen Avainmedia-lehden. Tuo lehti ilmestyy 12 kertaa vuodessa ja on täysin ilmainen. Mutta tässä siis kaikki tällä kertaa. Kiitos seurastasi ja hei hei!